And welcome back to Newsmax Now. I'm John Bachman. The Olympics wrapped up in Pyeongchang, South Korea, and despite concerns about the athletes' safety amid escalating nuclear tensions, the games went off without a hitch and in relative peace. Kim Jong-un's rogue regime tried to put on a charm offensive, and there seemed to be some shared goodwill with the South. But can that goodwill extend into talks between the U.S. and North Korea? Here to discuss that is one of the world's top experts on politics of North Korea, Daily Beast columnist Gordon Chang. Gordon, good to see you again.
Thank you very much, John.
All right. The South Korean's President Moon Jae-in says the North has, quote, ample intentions of holding talks with the United States. And the North's delegation also agreed that South-North relations and U.S.-North Korean relations should be improved together. Now, is there anything real to this development, Gordon? Because it seems like an old North Korean tactic to ease sanctions.
Yeah, well, the North Koreans certainly want to ease sanctions. Right now, I think they're in trouble because you have the American and UN measures are really starting to bite the North Koreans. So, for instance, there are these reports that North Korea is going to run out of hard currency by October. I don't know if the Chinese will let that happen, but nonetheless, these measures are really starting to affect, I think, North Korean behavior. And that's why they want to have talks with the U.S. because, as you point out, they do want relief.
Well, let's talk about this a little more. We'll talk about China as well. But here's what President Trump had to say about North Korea at CPAC on Friday. Take a listen.
I do want to say, because people have asked, North Korea, we imposed today the heaviest sanctions ever imposed on a country before.
Now, Gordon, when we hear that, the heaviest sanctions ever imposed on a country before, tell us a little bit more about what this means for North Korea. You talked about hard currency running out, but what else, what other kind of consequences will North Korea face?
Well, with these Friday sanctions, they're really designations under prior sanctions. What the administration did was it took one individual, 27 companies, and then 28 vessels and sanctioned them. And it's starting to look like a blockade because they're going after shipping. Shipping's critical, of course, because North Korea sells and buys a lot of stuff over the water. And that's a good thing in the sense that the United States is being able to constrict the North Koreans. At some point, I think the North Koreans are going to realize that they have no choice but to talk to the U.S. and maybe even no choice but to give up their weapons. We're not there yet because the United States needs to go after both China and Russia, and we really have only started that process. But nonetheless, we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, that's very difficult when you're dealing with Russia and the UN Security Council. We'll talk about China in just a second again, but I want to talk about Ivanka Trump at the closing ceremony. She sat with South Korean President Moon Jae-in, and behind them was a North Korean delegate, Kim Young-chol. It appears there was no communication between Ivanka and the North Koreans. Of course, a lot of media outlets falling all over themselves to talk about Kim Yo-jong when the games first started. But will the people of North Korea hear anything about Ivanka?
No, and they've heard very little about the Olympics. Even though these Olympics were taking place just, 30, 40 miles from the North Korean border, from the demilitarized zone, no, they didn't hear very much about them. Ivanka Trump created this big sensation at the closing ceremony among South Koreans. So, you had Kim Yo-jong, the sister of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. She created this sensation at the opening ceremony. At the closing ceremony, it was our turn. And so this was really good for the United States because people just wanted to see Ivanka Trump. She's a celebrity in South Korea, as you can imagine. So this was a good thing for the U.S.
Yeah, and to emphasize your point, what North Korea was doing was not about projecting that propaganda back to the North Koreans and to make them think that everything's great. That was purely an exercise for the outside world to make them think that North Korea may be somebody that could be dealt with.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the North Koreans wanted to do a number of things with their Olympics charm offensive. First of all, they wanted relief from sanctions. They hoped that the South Koreans would shovel some money to them. They wanted to drive a wedge between Seoul and Washington. We know that because that's what they've been trying to do for 70 years. And also I think that they wanted to gain a little bit of support from Moscow and Beijing by showing how reasonable they are. So North Korea had a lot of objectives at the Olympics.
All right, so speaking of Beijing, you have written extensively about China, of course, as well as North Korea. And China's ruling Communist Party may be getting rid of term limits. Current leader Xi Jinping is only supposed to rule as president beyond 2023. Well, this could extend his rule indefinitely. This seems like things are going in the wrong direction for China.
Oh, well, definitely. Xi Jinping is deinstitutionalizing the Communist Party. You know, for 2 decades, a lot of optimists were saying, oh, you know, the Communist Party is putting in place rules, it's got institutions, all the rest of it. And then all of a sudden, Xi Jinping comes along and with the wave of a hand gets rid of all of that. And that really shows the nature of the communist system in China. We've got to understand that China right now is going in very dangerous directions. Xi Jinping is a nationalist. He's been very belligerent. He's been trying to take away land from neighbors, trying to close off the global commons, which puts him into conflict with the United States, trying to take down the world's rules-based order. This is extremely serious. This is going to be, I think, an existential threat, not just for countries around China, but also for the United States as well. That's how serious China is right now.